welcome back. As promised in the last video, in this part we will discuss the 4 marking criteria for writing task 2 in more detail. Let us start with the task response. Now for task response, first thing we need to remember is it is important to fully address all parts of the question. For example, let us say our essay topic says, nowadays many people complain that they have difficulty getting enough sleep. What do you think are the reasons for this? What are the effects on individuals and people around them? Now, let us say I write an introduction for this essay topic, and then I write the first body paragraph where, as the essay topic asks me to, I talk about the reasons for sleep deprivation, where I may mention reasons like excessive use of modern technology. For example, people stay up till late scrolling through the social media. And now, having discussed reasons, a lot of students start talking about solutions. Like we may start talking about how we can get a good quality sleep, how we should restrict the use of mobile phones or tablets or computer screens. Let us go back to the question though. The question says, what do you think are the reasons for this? Then the question says, what are the effects on individuals and people around them? The question doesn't even ask us to discuss the solutions. Now, a lot of students simply assume that just because they have mentioned reasons or causes for something, they should now go ahead and give the solutions to those problems. But it is very important that we read the question carefully and only give the solutions if the topic requires or asks us to do so. Because in this case, not only do I lose marks in task response because I did not fully address all parts of the question. Question asked me to discuss reasons and effects, while I went ahead and discussed the reasons and solutions. So not only do I lose marks in task response, I also lose marks for writing off-topic content. Okay, so now I think I've read the topic, I've understood the topic. This is not a causes solution essay. This is a causes effects essay. Got it? And I start writing my essay where I first write an introduction and then a paragraph on causes, and then I write another paragraph on effects where I talk about how not getting enough sleep may affect a person. It may lead to an increase in stress levels. It may make the person more irritable. And then I conclude my essay, and I am very happy with my essay because I think I did understand the essay topic, and I also did address all parts of the question. But did I? Let's go back to the question. The question actually says, what do you think are the reasons for this? And what are the effects on individuals and people around them? The question specifically mentions that we're supposed to be discussing the effects on both the person and the people around them. And I may have just talked about effects on the person, and we end up getting again a band 5 on task response because we only partially answered the essay topic. We did not answer all parts of the question. This is also why it is very important to plan your essay ahead of writing. And when you're planning the ideas for your essay, it is very important to keep revisiting your essay topic, not only during planning stage, but also while we're writing. It will actually help if we keep going back to the essay topic just to make sure that we've not missed any important detail in the essay topic. Secondly, to get a good score on task response, I need to present a clear position throughout the task. For example, if the question says, some people think that parents, instead of school, should teach children how to be good members of society, do you agree or disagree? Now let us say again, I start my introduction by stating my opinion, where I write something like, I completely agree that parents should indeed teach their children how to be a good member of a society, and then I explain my opinion in the body paragraphs. And now I have to conclude my essay. Let us say in conclusion, I write something like, in conclusion, teaching children to be a good member of a society should be a shared responsibility for both parents at home as well as the teachers at school. Now, in the introduction, I mentioned I completely agree with the topic, but in conclusion, I give a mixed opinion where I say that both the parents and teachers should teach this to the children. This is again where I lose marks in task response because I did not give a clear opinion throughout the essay. Now, if you look at your band descriptors, band 7 says, presents a clear position throughout the response, while band 6 says, presents a relevant position, although conclusions may become unclear. And that is exactly what we did here. Lastly, to get a good score on task response, it is important that we present, extend, and fully support our ideas. Remember, IELTS is not a test of knowledge. So don't try to tell the examiner everything you know about the topic. The examiner is not interested in your knowledge about a topic. The examiner is interested to see how well can you elaborate your ideas. Now, if we try to write too many ideas, we will not be able to elaborate them, which is why it is important to maybe write 2 or 3 ideas in your essay. The second criterion for our essay marking is coherence and cohesion. We need to logically organize information in our essay. That is, we should write different paragraphs for discussing different ideas, starting with an introduction and then a couple of body paragraphs, and then end our essay with a conclusion. Now, paragraphing for an essay has to be logical. If you look at the band descriptor, under coherence and cohesion for band 6, it says, uses paragraphing, but not always logically. So the best approach to paragraphing your essay, the body paragraphs especially, is to have a clear central topic for each paragraph. That is, the examiner should clearly be able to tell that, okay, this paragraph here is an introduction. This next paragraph talks about advantages. The next paragraph talks about disadvantages. Okay, now this paragraph here is concluding the essay. So there should be a very clear opening statement for each paragraph that will introduce that paragraph, that will tell what the central idea of the paragraph is. Ideally, we should write one idea in one paragraph, because not only will we be able to score well on coherence and cohesion, that will also help us score well on task response. Because remember how we talked about presenting, extending, and fully supporting our ideas. Now, if we dedicate one paragraph to one idea, we will obviously be able to elaborate that idea, because now we are presenting that idea in the opening statement of the paragraph. Then we write a couple of sentences to expand, to give details of our idea, and then we are also able to give some evidence, some relevant examples. So that gets us a band 7 on both TR and coherence and cohesion. Well, that actually gets us a band 7 or above on these 2 criteria. Because if you look at band 7 row under coherence and cohesion on band descriptors, it says presents a clear central topic within each paragraph, as opposed to band 6, where it says there is paragraphing but not always logical. Let us now see how to structure our body paragraph in a way that it satisfies all of the requirements for coherence and cohesion, as well as task response for a band 7, 8, or 9. So a body paragraph should ideally have 4 components, where it should start with a topic sentence. That is the first sentence that will introduce our main idea for that paragraph, followed by a couple of sentences for explanation. It could be a single sentence explanation, depends what our idea is or how easy or hard to explain it is. It could be a single sentence explanation, or 2 sentences, or maybe even 3 sentences. We then write an example to support our view, and then we wrap up our body paragraph with a sentence that will conclude or summarize our central idea. Let us now try and write one body paragraph so that we understand these 4 parts properly. Let's take the example of this essay topic right here. Some people think that parents, instead of school, should teach their children how to be good members of society. Do you agree or disagree? Now, let us say I agree with this topic. I will give only 2 reasons to explain my view, because that way I'll be able to explain them well, and I will write 2 separate body paragraphs for these. So this is what my one of my body paragraphs will look like. So I start with the topic sentence. Parents can ingrain certain values by creating a conducive learning environment within their homes. I then explain my topic sentence. Children are often known to emulate the parents' behavior, such as the way they respond to a family member in need of help. I will now give a supporting example. A mother, for example, may inculcate compassion by rewarding her child when he or she helps a younger sibling in homework. Lastly, I nicely wrap it up with a summarizing sentence that will link my example back to my topic sentence, to the main idea of the body paragraph. This is how parents can instill social values in their children by creating a healthy familial environment. Please note that this approach may not apply for all the essays. This, for example, was an agree-disagree essay, so I will choose to give 2 reasons to support my view, and write those 2 reasons into separate body paragraphs, which is why I can afford to dedicate an entire paragraph to one idea. But that may not be the case for say an advantages disadvantages essay, where I may choose to give more than one advantage. Same goes for disadvantages as well. So there maybe I'll write more than one idea in one body paragraph. In that case, my topic sentence now turns to a statement that will tell the examiner that this paragraph is about advantages, instead of the topic the topic sentence actually telling what the advantage is. It will just be an outlining sentence that will tell that this paragraph is going to talk about the advantages of buying a large number of toys for children. I cannot get into the detail of the essay structure for all of the 4 or different essay types, because every single one of the essay types is at least an hour-long lesson, and that is not the point of this video. And then to get a good score on coherence and cohesion, it is also important to use cohesive devices. One common misconception with regards to cohesive devices is that we should try and use as many of them as possible. That is not true. If you look at your band descriptors, you will find that we may actually be penalized for overusing or incorrectly using the cohesive devices. And I find that every time a student tries and write a lot of them, he or she ends up using these cohesive devices incorrectly. And the band descriptor under coherence and cohesion for band 7 says, logically organizes information and ideas, there is a clear progression throughout, and uses a range of cohesive devices appropriately, although there may be some under or overuse. Secondly, for band 6, it says, uses cohesive devices effectively, but cohesion within and or between sentences may be faulty or mechanical. Keep it natural, really. For band 9, it actually says, uses cohesion in such a way that it attracts no attention. So don't try and write fancy sounding words like to embark upon or to commence with. What is wrong with firstly? If you read these sample essays written by examiners, I don't think you'll ever find an essay that uses phrases like to embark upon. You may find a firstly or secondly, but I can almost guarantee that you will never find an essay, at least not an essay written by an examiner, that has phrases like to embark upon or to recapitulate. Oh my god, what does that even mean? I mean, well, I do know what that means, but this is exactly what the band descriptor here says, that your cohesive devices should not seem mechanical. It seems so robotic. If I am going to conclude my essay, I will simply write to conclude or in conclusion. See, if you do want to show your vocabulary skills, show that in the body content. Show it somewhere that the examiner can see that this is truly the kind of lexis that you have. This is a word that you are familiar with and know how to correctly use, instead of using these words that are doing the exact opposite. When we use words like to embark upon and to recapitulate, we're telling the examiner that this is what my IELTS teacher taught me. This is what that essay structure template had. I would often get students ask me if I have a list of these cohesive devices. I'm like, yeah, of course I do. I mean, even if I didn't, you can always Google and download them. But what's the point of having this list of 20 different cohesive devices if you're really only going to be using 3 or 4 of them? Honestly, I think that is how many of the cohesive devices you will be using in your essay if you're using them appropriately. We'll now talk about the third marking criterion, which is a lexical resource. In simple words, vocabulary. Now, we are required to use less common vocabulary, but what is also important to remember is that we should be able to use this vocabulary accurately and naturally. At least that's what is required to get a band 9 as per the band descriptors. Let us use the same example from before. Some people think that parents, instead of school, should teach their children how to be good members of society. Do you agree or disagree? Let us say this is how a student responds to the question. This is how they start the essay. I opine that parents should upskill their offspring with paramount social values. There is a plethora of notions to substantiate my stance, which I shall explicate in the subsequent paragraphs. To embark upon. I mean, settle down, Shakespeare. Let us see what band this student gets on Lexical resource, according to the band descriptor, of course. Well, for band 9, it says that they use a wide range of vocabulary naturally. This is the farthest thing from natural, so yep, clearly not a band 9. Let's see what band 5 says. Band 5 may cause some difficulty for the reader. Yep. Actually, no. Some difficulty is an understatement. This almost gave me a migraine attack. See, I understand that we have to paraphrase the essay prompt, of course, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to come up with the substitute words with synonyms for all of the words in our essay prompt. Here's another relatively easier way to paraphrase our essay prompt. Say you took your IELTS and you go back home and you call your IELTS tutor to tell them how your test went, and you tell them what your essay topic is. Are you able to repeat it word for word from the essay prompt? That is not very likely, is it? But you do remember what the idea, what the essay question was, though. So when you tell your your tutor what your essay topic is, you're essentially paraphrasing the prompt. There you go. Here's an example. So our essay question was, some people think that parents should teach their children how to be good members of society. Do you agree or disagree? Now I try and paraphrase this by not finding synonyms for every single word in my prompt, but by really just rephrasing the sentence. So I write something like, teaching a child to be a good member of society is often believed to be the responsibility of parents. There you go. It is simple, yes, but it does not change the meaning of the question. And I cannot stress this enough. It is very important for us to make sure that the meaning of the question remains intact. Trying to change the language, don't end up changing the meaning of the question, because now we're essentially telling the examiner that I did not even understand the question right, and we lose marks in task response right away. Not to mention, this was supposed to be our first impression on the examiner. How do you think that went? If right from the introduction, examiner thinks that we may not even have understood the question properly, we do not want that. We do not want to give that impression right from the introduction of our essay, now do we? So try and keep it simple. Try and be as concise as possible. Don't talk about vague things in your introduction. Communicate what the actual topic is in very clear and concise manner. Let me also make this very clear. I am not telling the students to not use high-level vocabulary. Of course not. But it is very important that when we use some high-level vocabulary, we use it accurately, because otherwise it costs us band 7 on vocabulary. Again, if you look at your band descriptor, now the aim here is to get a band 7 or higher. But band 6 here says, attempts to use less common vocabulary, but with some inaccuracy. For this introduction, for example, remember Mr. Shakespeare? Not only does this candidate lose marks in vocabulary because it's clearly showing that he does not know the actual meanings of these words because he's not using them correctly, but he also loses marks in grammar, because when we use synonyms for certain words, we may not be framing our sentences correctly, because we may not be using the correct prepositions, and hence we end up writing wrong sentences which are grammatically inaccurate. Thirdly, we also lose marks in coherence and cohesion, because now our ideas are not very coherent. It is not very easy for the examiner to read and follow our thoughts. One of the surefire ways to get a good score on lexical resource is to use some topic-specific vocabulary, because that is how the examiner knows that our lexis is strong enough to come up with the right words to communicate our ideas according to the essay question that we got. For example, we may have memorized certain words and phrases to use in place of the word people, like common masses or individuals or public. But how about this? How about we try and use some topic-specific words to replace the word people? Say my topic is about sports, so I may use words like sportsman or athletes. If my essay topic is about tourism, I may replace the word people with tourists, travelers, locals. Now, if my essay topic is about shopping or advertising, I may use words like shoppers, consumers, customers. Say my essay topic is about employment or workplace, I may use words like employer, employees, staff, workers. And then if my essay is about education, I can use words like tutor, teacher, students, pupils, graduates. You get the idea. This is what topic-specific vocabulary is. See, the worst way to improve your vocabulary is memorizing words. It is very common for language schools to give you a list of words and their synonyms, say maybe like 10 words every day. I'm not sure if that is the right approach to improve our vocabulary, because let us say you took classes for 30 days, and by the time you finish your coaching, you would have learned 300 new words. Out of these 300, how many words were you able to use on the day of your test, on your IELTS test? I'm guessing not many. So of course that is a great way to learn meanings of words, but if you want to use those words in your writing and speaking, you've got to understand the words with the context. Now, one way to work on a topic-specific vocabulary is reading a lot of sample essays. The best way to do that would be working on one topic at a time. For example, today I will read maybe between 3 and 5 topics, essay topics related to education. And then I will underline certain words that I feel I may be able to repeat and use in sentences. And then I will try and make sentences of my own using those words. Chances are I will be able to frame correct sentences using those, because I know how the word is used in a sentence, so I remember it through context now. So a quick recap for lexical resource: use a wide range of vocabulary, but at the same time, it is very important to use those words accurately and naturally. And paraphrase the prompt, but do not end up changing the meaning of the essay topic, just trying to change the language of the essay prompt. Lastly, try and use some topic-specific vocabulary and collocation and phrasal verbs to get a good score on lexical resource. Now, I'm sorry, in this video, I cannot talk in detail about what collocations and phrasal verbs are, because that is, again, another hour-long class, a grammar class actually. Lastly, we have grammatical range and accuracy. Now, it is important to use a wide range of sentence structures, but it is just as important to write these sentences accurately. well, it can get a little tricky to maintain this balance, if you will, between range and accuracy, to be honest, because when we write simple sentences, it is somewhat easier to ensure accuracy. But when we're writing complex sentence structures, a lot of students have trouble using the commas correctly or framing the sentence correctly using right grammar. But a lot of students also feel that complex sentence is a sentence that has a lot of commas and is a very long sentence and is a very complicated sentence, when really it's not. I mean, here's an example of a complex sentence. In fact, let me give you let me give you three examples of complex sentences. He fell while he was running. Finish your work before you go to bed. She is successful because she worked hard. Let us now see how to frame complex sentences. A complex sentence is simply a combination of one independent clause and one or more subordinate clause. Independent clause is one complete idea. A subordinate clause is an incomplete idea that does not make sense on its own. Let us look at this example. He fell while he was running. Let us split the sentence into two parts. So this is the independent clause. It doesn't depend on any other words for it to make sense. Hence, independent clause. An independent clause has a verb and a subject. The latter part of the sentence is called a subordinate clause because it does not make sense by itself. It needs the independent clause for it to make sense. While he was running, it makes absolutely no sense. He fell while he was running. Now the sentence makes sense. Let us look at the next example. Finish your work before you go to bed. Let us look at the third example now. She is successful because she worked hard. The words that combine the independent clause and the subordinate clause are known as subordinating conjunctions. In these three examples, the subordinating conjunctions are while, before, because. Here are some commonly used subordinating conjunctions. Try and write at least 3 sentences using each of these. Some of us have been taught that we cannot start a sentence with a subordinating conjunction. That is not true. It is totally okay to start a sentence with a subordinating conjunction. Only in that case, the subordinate clause comes before the independent clause. And we also put a comma after subordinate clause. Let us try and rewrite these sentences starting with the subordinating conjunction. While he was running, he fell. Before you go to bed, finish your work. Because she worked hard, she is successful. Now in these examples, we started our sentence with the subordinating conjunction. When we do that, it is important that we put a comma after the subordinate clause. So this is how we can write 2 types of complex sentences. One, starting with an independent clause. Second, starting with the subordinating conjunction, in which case the subordinate clause comes before the independent clause. Yet another way to write a complex sentence can be using 2 subordinating conjunction. Look at this example. Although she had no support, she is successful because she worked hard. So now we know how to make 3 types of complex sentences. One, where we start with the independent clause followed by a subordinate clause. Second, where we start with the subordinate clause, followed by independent clause. Third, where we use one independent clause and two subordinate clauses. Let us see what the band descriptors say about grammatical range and accuracy. To get a band 6, it is important to use a mix of simple and complex sentence forms. But in order to get a band 7, we have to use a variety of complex structures. That is, just writing a combination of simple and complex sentences is not enough. We have to use a variety of complex sentence structures. And we just learned 3 different ways to write complex sentences. But to get a band 8 or 9, we have to use a wide range of sentence structures. That is, we absolutely do have to use simple and complex sentence structures, but also other structures, other sentence forms. For example, compound sentences, active and passive voice. So that was the last marking criterion for our essay. And that also brings us to the end of the video. And in the next video, we'll talk about essay planning and proofreading, and also talk about time management for the writing module. Take care.